Listen, this is a very big deal. 3,500 athletes descending on Detroit. 12,000 people are here supporting it, all for these national championships, which for some could punch their ticket towards the next Olympics.
Run something for me.
Juan Carlos is a 16-year-old Taekwondo fighter with big aspirations.
I always dreamed myself of being in the Olympics, representing the U.S.
In fact, their dream is so big, his family moved him from El Paso, Texas, to Plymouth.
Cut in strong, finish strong.
To train with one of the best coaches in the country. And that training is at least twice a day, 6 times a week.
For me, mental is the hardest part. You can be the most talented player, but if you don't have mental ability, you're not going to get too far.
That mental game paired with the physical game is on display at Kobo this weekend for the National Taekwondo Championships.
I want more offense this round, okay? More offense, okay? Let's go.
And Coach Jason Poo says these athletes
Pick. Good, now go forward.
are the best of the best.
It's the pinnacle for them because what they need to do is they need to qualify for their state championship. They qualify in the top 3 or 4 in this case. Then they'll come to our national championships. You win a national champion, that's what you are.
This actually is the 3rd time the Nationals have been in Detroit. They say the state, the city, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau make planning easy, and they love the accommodations. 3,500 athletes are here, but it's estimated these week-long championships bring in about 12,000 people. Now, some who win have the opportunity to represent the U.S. in the World Championships in Costa Rica. But in a way, this can also be a qualifier for the Olympics.
Go first.
In the Olympics, you have to be 17 or older, so this is the last stepping stone, the largest national stage before they're eligible.
This is our pipeline to get Olympians for sure, so yeah, no question.
At Cobo Hall, Nick Monticelli,
Go ahead, good.
Local 4.
For many of us, this is the busiest time of the year, bar none. It can be tough to find time for things like holiday shopping, especially if you are a caregiver, which is why experts tell us that this is one of the most important times of the year for caregivers to give the gift of rest to themselves. Paula Tutman shows us why.
So, of course, when you look outside and you see the snow and the decorations, we know that you're getting ready and getting in the spirit of the holiday season. You're probably out there doing some shopping. But what our experts are telling us that the very best gift you can give yourself this holiday season, particularly if you're the caregiver of someone who's memory impaired, take care of yourself.
Here we go, everybody. School days. School days.
It's Music Hour at the Dorothy and Peter Brown Jewish Community Adult Day Program.
He's in the jailhouse now. He's in the jailhouse now. In the jailhouse now.
For Denny, who used to play the banjo for adoring crowds, it gives him a piece of who he once was. For everything dementia steals from our loved ones, it steals from their caregivers.
I think that caregivers are ashamed and embarrassed to ask for help, but they really shouldn't be.
'Tis the season for a fair amount of holiday joy and holiday stressors. And so experts say this time of year in particular, caregivers need the gift of rest from caregiving.
We know that if caregivers don't get the help that they need, then they won't be able to be caregivers as long as they need to be, and they won't be able to be the kind of caregivers that they need to be.
Carolyn has been married to Charles 40 years.
Is it good, honey? Is that food good?
No, it's no.
It is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Because it wasn't right there. He's the one that's been helping me.
But when he developed early onset dementia 10 years ago, her life changed. She became his sole at-home caregiver.
It's an everyday of loss that you start accumulating.
But she did recognize a need for respite for herself.
It gives me the opportunity to live a life, to have a life.
Experts say find a respite care center to save yourself.
They feel guilty when they take that time for themselves. They feel like they're taken away from the person that they're caring for. But I can't say you shouldn't feel that way because you have to work your way through that. But you must take care of yourself first.
You know, that really is very, very critical. When you talk about respite, it doesn't have to be every day, every week. It doesn't even have to be overnight, but it is necessary for caregivers, particularly of those with memory impairments or physical or disabilities. It's critical that they get some rest from caregiving so that they're able to recharge, regroup, and rethink so they can be the best for their loved one. Karen?
You are so true. It is very critical they do get rest, because what the job they are doing is so critically important. All right, thank you, Paula.
It really is. We got some, Karen,
Yeah.
we got some great information we're going to put on clickondetroit.com with how you can also dial in and help your loved one over these holiday seasons. Great advice, really worth looking into.
All right, we will make sure that we get that posted in time so everyone can check that out. Thank you, Paula. We appreciate it.
Is it a misunderstanding or misuse of funds by the Detroit Public Schools Community District?
That's a question legislators are asking tonight amid a lawsuit over an abandoned school. Detroit Preparatory Academy is trying to buy the former Anna Joyce Elementary, but the district is blocking the purchase.
As Nick Monticelli reports, lawmakers say the district shouldn't be fighting nor be spending money to do it.
Here, show me your sentences.
Inside Detroit Preparatory Charter Academy, you'll find a lot of kids in very small classrooms. You'll also notice they're in the basement of a church, and their playground is the back corner of a parking lot. They have simply run out of room.
I can just envision our kids here. I can envision how bright and joyful it's going to be.
That's why Kyle Smitley, the executive director of the school, is eyeing Anna Joyce Elementary, a former DPS school. The last thing taught here was spelling and reading in June of 2009. It was sold and has been falling apart ever since.
We think that with some TLC, it can be a perfect, joyful place for our students. We love the neighborhood.
Detroit Prep is trying to buy the school, but they can't get the title. DPSED has a deed restriction on the property, limiting its use despite no longer owning it. But the Michigan legislature changed the law, making those restrictions illegal. It was a hot topic in a hearing yesterday with the DPSCD superintendent.
We, as a school district, find the act problematic, that it usurps the right of elected school boards to determine the future of their own assets.
And the reality is the deed restrictions are illegal now. You can't, whether you like them or not, whether it's good for your district or not, is immaterial. It's the law.
This is a political fight about charter schools versus traditional public schools. They don't want another charter school open in their district. That's what this is about.
And the biggest sticking point for some is the district's use of funds to defend the lawsuit.
There should be no resources spent by DPS for a building that they do not own to prevent kids from learning in the city of Detroit.
This will be our assembly room.
In the meantime, Smitley says she appreciates Dr. Vidi's passion, but finds it misdirected.
You can be a great advocate for your students and simultaneously all students in Detroit in following the law.
There is not necessarily a deadline on any of this, except for the fact that Detroit Prep is out of room and they'd like to be able to move into this building by the beginning of the next school year. The contractors say they can do that. They can fix all of this, but they have to start in January. On Detroit's East Side, Nick Monticelli, Local 4.
All right, let's go live and see the Silverdome coming down. We're going to be quiet so we can hear the pops of the explosions. Top half expected to come down onto the bottom half of the Silverdome.
And crowds have been gathering since shortly after 8 o'clock. Our Coco McAvoy has been live there all morning as crowds gathering to watch this historic moment.
A controlled demolition, of course, of a place that holds so many memories. Also sad, however, how it was just left to kind of in disrepair year after year. Here we go. There's the first set of explosions. Silverdome still hanging on. Doesn't want to quite come down so quickly.
Demolition and implosion of the Silverdome, built back in the 1970s. Quite a large crowd gathering to see this happen.
So we heard those initial explosions. Silverdome hanging on. Doesn't want to go quite easily into the crisp morning here.
As you remember from last week, the demolition expert said the explosions are around the support beams that hold the upper tier, essentially the third floor. So it's mainly the third floor that they've at least weakened for, as you know, longer-term demolition, where they take it down piece by piece over the course of a year.
Perhaps if we can see from Sky 4, perhaps that third floor already came down inside, and these are the outer walls of the structure that will be torn down, possibly by cranes and whatnot. But still it looks like the upper deck is still intact there.
And while there are so many memories there, it has been an eyesore for quite some time. Residents in the area have been complaining about it for some time. There weren't really any easy options or quick fixes. But this is the beginning of the end of an era and the beginning of something new.
Coco McAvoy is live there. I wonder if we can go to Coco, guys, and see if Coco has any information on the ground about what we're seeing, why we're not seeing the Silverdome kind of collapsing onto itself. I know they had a news conference at 8:15.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning.
Yes, Coco. We got you.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Priya. So, of course, we're standing here right next to the Silverdome. You heard the explosions go off, but as you mentioned, from this view at least, doesn't look like much happened on the outside. We didn't really see anything start to cave in or implode, but we're expecting that possibly they're going to try again here in a few minutes to try to see if some of the walls will start to cave in. But you really should be able to see behind me. I'm going to see if we can kind of turn around just a little bit, because I want you guys to see how many people have decided to come out here this morning to witness this, because a lot of people have a lot of memories here. This place meant a lot to people because it had a lot of the grand occasions. We're talking about the Led Zeppelin concert. We're talking about one of the popes being here one time. That drew a crowd of over 90,000 people. And of course, you had the Detroit Lions here. You had the Pistons here for about 10 years. So a lot of memories here, and people wanted to witness this. So I've got to tell you, there are more than 100 people out here for sure. Families are coming as well, and we spoke to a couple of people who brought their little ones. Of course, the little ones don't have memories here, but the parents do, and they really wanted their kids to be a part of history here because, as Priya mentioned earlier, this is really the end of an era. I mean, you talk to so many people out here, everyone has a different memory. Everyone has something that they'll miss a lot about the Silverdome, but as we've also mentioned, of course, it was a center of controversy because it's been an eyesore for so many years. People have been wondering what's going to happen here. When is it going to be demolished? Well, today, that day came where the first implosion took place. But of course, it's going to be about a year until this really all comes together, because they're going to be doing a set of demolitions throughout the entire year to get this whole thing down. And we spoke to Al Brooks Patterson earlier today, and he says that he can't name any names, but they have been in communications with some businesses who are interested in this location because it's a huge plot of land, but it's also a prime location right off the freeway here. So the possibilities for this land here, it's really endless. So that's kind of the exciting moment. Although people are really sad out here to see this go, there's also a feeling of excitement because you're not sure what's going to come, but you know it's probably going to be something very big. So we're going to stay out here. But something else that I find interesting that I want to show you, if we pan up, just take a look at all of the drones here in the sky. There are so many drones out here. I would say at least a dozen on top of here, trying to take that bird's eye view to see what this implosion process is going to look like. So we're going to stay out here all morning long, and we're going to keep bringing you coverage, and we're going to talk to some of the public relations representatives here on the ground to see if and when they're going to start another implosion here. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Coco, great job showing us the view of the Silverdome, but everyone's now wondering what happened. Why isn't it coming down? Hasn't really truly been imploded yet. Or can you get to someone to ask, what the initial blast, did that do what they needed it to do to weaken the structure? And is there another round of blasts to come in the next few minutes to bring the structure down?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're trying to find out right now, because it was kind of a little bit humorous, actually. When the explosions went off, all you heard from people was, it didn't do anything, try again, guys. So people are trying to figure out exactly if it did what it was supposed to do. Maybe we just can't see from the outside here. Maybe they got the metal beams down that they needed to get down, or are they going to try to do another implosion here to get those metal beams down? Because today, that's exactly what was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be WDIV, the metal beams that hold that upper ring around the stadium, those were supposed to come down as the first part of the process. So we're going to keep taking a look here, and we're going to ask some people on the ground to figure out what the next step is.
And as you mentioned, Coco, we can get to that video again of that initial blast there. This is a year-long process. It's going to take some time here once the demolition process begins. But if we want to show viewers again that video of that initial blast happening at the Silverdome just moments ago in front of about 100 people, Coco mentioned, there to watch it.
All right, so we know that's going to do something, of course, to weaken the structure, but it's not a traditional implosion. People lined up to watch this in the early morning light here to see it come down, at least the top half. That's what we were told. And it appears we didn't see anything happen after this. We don't know the inner workings, the engineering inside of what they were imploding, what they were targeting there. But certainly we didn't see the structure move. We didn't see it list or start to come down, not a traditional implosion at all. And we need to find out what the next step would be.
But, you know, for so many people here, it's just so many memories, and I think that that's why you have such a large crowd early on a Sunday morning here, just taking it all in. You know, it's really holds a special place in the hearts of so many. Of course, the Lions, the Pistons, the Pope has been there. We have, you know, music festivals that have happened there, just really historic events that are near and dear to so many.
And you wonder if it's basically a combination of both money and engineering. The reason why we didn't see anything that was more spectacular or that was not in the planning, maybe it's a matter of both financing and maybe it's a factor of also engineering or a combination of the two.
And speaks to how well built the Silverdome was.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you talk to season ticket holders with the Lions, and they talk about how loud that building was, especially when Barry Sanders would do his traditional move at the line and then take off for the end zone. You wonder now, however, if the implosion didn't work. That's a question we'll ask on the ground. Is the Silverdome now unstable after we saw the ring of blast now, and would it be dangerous for crews to go back in and try to rewire more explosives to bring the venerable old girl down? You just don't know at this point. These are the questions certainly we'll be asking on the ground right now.
And that's fascinating for students to actually watch and listen to later on this morning, because I always tell kids that when it comes to science and engineering, this is a fun way of learning about STEM.
Right.
Yes. Pardon me for being the resident nerd or geek here. But this is a great way to introduce kids about the education about engineering and what it actually takes. There are actual men and women who have jobs to not only erect and build structures like this, but also to take them down. So if your child has an interest in running around the house, tearing things up, this is the professional way of doing it.
But not the traditional implosion. If you come to watch a building come down, you kind of expect it to come down in a big cloud of dust from a safe distance like folks are there. I'm sure Coco is working her way through the crowd to get to the people in charge. They did hold a news conference about the Silverdome implosion right after the 8 o'clock hour. She's making her way to go talk to those folks to find out what exactly did we see? Did it go wrong, or did it do exactly what they expected it to do? And perhaps why didn't we see more action with the building coming down?
Immediate collapse or not, the sound of the explosion, always an amazing thing to hear, right?
Yeah. And we know that officials are on the scene. We can only surmise that engineers are also there trying to figure out exactly what happened here. But again, that first major explosion on the Silverdome happening about 10 minutes ago in front of a crowd about 100 people. And we know Coco McAvoy has been speaking with officials on the scene here. We're working to gather more information about exactly what happens next if this structure is unstable in any way, if it's
Let's get to Coco right now with the update that we're all waiting to hear. Coco, take it away.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Priya. So I just actually got off the phone with the economic developer here for Pontiac. She tells me that this implosion failed. She said, quote, this did not do what it was supposed to do. I asked her if there's going to be another implosion that we can wait for. She says, this is it for today. So she says right now what they're doing is they have a drone. They're sending their drone inside of the building to try to figure out what happened, why this happened, why it didn't work. However, the update is we know this implosion did not work as planned. It actually failed, and that's proof, as you can see right now, the Silverdome still standing strong. You can see that none of the walls caved in. What was supposed to happen today It was a controlled demolition process. What they were supposed to do is the explosion was going to break the metal beams that keep that upper ring of the stadium intact. That was going to be step one of this implosion. However, I was just told that that process has failed. So now they've got to figure out what can they do next. But it's a little bit unfortunate because dozens of people are out here this morning. They were expecting to see an implosion. However, that did not happen this morning. And we are told once again that it will not occur once again today. So I want to show you the crowd, though, that is out here. It seems that people are still in good spirits. They're excited to all be here together to really take in and talk about all of the memories here that they had at the Silverdome, because the memories are many. We're talking about concerts, we're talking about the Detroit Lions, we're talking about the Pistons being here for years, among other sports as well, soccer as well. And of course, the Pope was here. That drew a crowd of over more than 90,000 people. So the fact that this failed is unfortunate. And again, the city of Pontiac is trying to figure out why. They said they haven't gotten answers yet from the company here that planned the implosion for this morning. So as soon as they get that, they'll bring that to us. We'll, of course, keep checking in with them to try to figure out what exactly happened. But we do know that this did not go as planned this morning.
Thank you so much, Coco McAvoy, reporting live for us in Pontiac. So as you just heard her talking to the officials there in Pontiac, the Silverdome implosion did fail. There was a number of people who came out to watch this implosion. And of course, now contingency plans in place to see what happens next. We knew this was going to be a year-long demolition process in its entirety, and now with an initial setback on this first major implosion effort.
Let's show you what happened at the 8:30 hour. This explosions ringing the beams of the Silverdome, and it was supposed to be a 12-second implosion. The blasts go off, the beams are weakened, and then the top level is supposed to collapse down onto the second level for a safer demolition, according to the Detroit-based Adamo Group. They were the ones hired to do the demolition, and they were looking for a safer demolition. They considered, this group of engineers, several different ways to bring it down, and they decided on this one. Unfortunately, this one did not work this morning. It's a 400,000 square foot structure. The old girl is strong. You could say Metro Detroit strong, for all the great teams and fans that have filled it with spirit over the years. It simply didn't want to come down for this group. So the group has to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to bring the Silverdome down. Very interesting to not see an implosion work.